Hi everyone, it's Erin here from Erin Elizabeth Designs. Today I'm going to walk you through my finish for Teach, Love, Inspire. This was a chart that I created for my son's teacher. I wanted to make her something that was special and unique. So of course I went to cross stitch, and it is a chart that is now available for whoever would like to also stitch it for someone special, teachers in your life. I think it's a cute little stitch, easy to do, but something that's nice and special and meaningful coming. I always love a good homemade gift. So that was kind of the idea behind this project. I'm going to be making this into a little pillow today. So I've just gone around and trimmed my fabric, leaving a 1/2 inch seam, a space on that piece. That'll give a 1/4 inch for my seam allowance, and then a 1/4 inch for breathing space between the seam and the design. So I do generally keep my small pillows tight to the finish, but you can choose whatever kind of breathing space or finish you would like to do for it. And now I'm just going through and making sure that my backing fabric is nice and squared off. As you can see, it's a check, so always have to pay a little bit more attention to that kind of stuff. And again, I'm just making that piece the exact same size as my front piece. So now that I've got those, I'm going to do the interfacing. I just have a nice flexible interfacing, and it's fusible. No particular brand or favorite. It's just whatever I found in my drawer. So I'm going to cut that again about a 1/4 inch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance around the same size as the pieces. So whatever my finished cut piece for the front and back were, I'm going to go in a 1/2 inch, and that'll give it the 1/4 inch seam allowance space there around the edges for sewing. I'm going to go ahead and iron those to the front and the back. And then with interfacing, I generally cover, not always do I use it. Generally, I do with the stitching just to kind of like give it a little extra strength or stability and structure to it. Especially, this is a linen, it's a white linen, so it's a little bit sheer. But if it's a linen, I generally like to give it a little bit more strength and structure to the fabric. If I was on a Lugana, sometimes I don't do interfacing. It just is kind of a personal preference, so whatever you prefer. And sometimes I don't do it on the back fabric either. This was a weave fabric that was very loose and kind of soft, so I wanted to give it a little more structure. So that's why I chose to do interfacing on both. I do the slit in the back of the pillow method. So I've gone and done that, just made a nice cut in the back, went and sewed it at my sewing machine, and now I am turning it inside out. I love to do this method because it allows for those nice, clean, crisp edges, and I don't have to do the hand sewing in a spot that's going to be visible. I'm not adding any trim or anything to this particular pillow. So if I did the bottom seam, I'd have to sew it up, and I just prefer not to put that effort into the actual sewing. It's not my forte. I like doing the decorative patch on the back of pillows. So this is the method that works for me. Whichever works for you, please, like, everybody's got their own personal preference. So I've now turned it inside out, and I'm just trying to get my corners out nice and crisp. And here I always turn it inside out, use my little chopstick to try and poke those corners out, and then like wiggle them out as best I can. And sometimes when they get a little sticky or extra clumpy, I do go in with a sewing needle and a pin and just try and pull that out. So this is something that I think I learned this in my sewing class in high school. My sewing teacher had showed me to just grab the corner of the fabric and give it a little like push pull. You have to be very careful with this, especially with obviously your woven stitching fabric. So I'm grabbing the back um, cotton fabric, and I'm grabbing that and then just kind of giving it a little light tug and pull. You just always be very careful when you've got like a sharp object in um, your fabric like this. So it's something that I do. If you're familiar with it, um, absolutely, it's a great little technique. It takes a little bit, like you just, again, I would suggest if you're going to try that to just be careful that you're only grabbing the fabric very loosely and then giving it a light little tug to help encourage that corner out. So with my pillows, I do use the polyfiber fill, and I like to put that just in the corners to give it a little bit more stability and shape in there. The rest of it, I'm going to be filling with the poly pellets. And these I really love because it gives it that kind of like beanbag feel, gives it a little bit more weight and structure to it. But that polyfiber fill really does help to get in the corners and also stay there. Whereas if I was just doing the poly pellets, I find that they kind of like might move and fall out of those corners, especially as time goes by. And if it's been handled a little bit, fabric stretches, things adjust, all the good things. So I do like that little bit of fiber fill in there just to give it a little bit of the shape and hold that. And then when I'm done, I always put a little extra in the hole. Again, that's to kind of like help keep them there while I'm stitching up, and it almost creates that like barrier so they're not like popping out all the time. They still do because I poke it in still. So every once in a while I'll have extras come out. I'm sure we'll see some here. But that is how I generally prefer my pillows. I've found I like this type of filling the best. I like to use the lizard litter if it's for a pin cushion, a drum, biscornu, like those kinds of things definitely would be where I would use that more. Not so much with the little pillows. I just prefer the little pellets myself. So whatever your fill is, if you want to do all fiber fill, that's great. I've tried them all, and as anyone, when you try all the different little ways of doing it, you'll find what works best for you. So this is my preferred method for pillows. And now I'm just going through and I'm just nothing fancy, just getting the stitches in and sewing this little pillow back up. So no more of those little pellets can fall out. Once I've done this, I'm going to cover it with a little decorative patch. This to me is just the easier way because I don't have to be as mindful with how I'm stitching up that bottom seam, like if I were to do a bottom seam fill. But if you don't enjoy doing the patches on the back, then maybe sewing, leaving the seam open on the bottom is the way to go for you. Me personally, I know you never see the backs as much as when they're in a bowl or something, but it's there and I know it's there, and it to me is kind of like that sealed, like your little signature to your pillows. So for me, I love the patch on the back. And before I tie off, I just like to make sure I've got enough filling in there because I don't want to have to find out after that, oh, I got to open it back up. So I always double check and make sure everything is, once it's nice and tight, that it's full and there's enough in there to my liking. All right, so now I had this little idea to do a ruler box for this to sit in, for the pillow to sit in. And then I wanted to create some decorative apples to kind of go in there with this chart. So I found this yardstick at the dollar store. And as you can see here, it's got this nice metal eyelet in the top of it. So I thought wouldn't it be fun to cut that first piece to like a 3.5 inch mark and put that on a floss ring and have it in your projects to kind of use as that measuring, like a corner gauge kind of to measure in where you're starting from. Because I don't know about you, but I'm always like, I'll give myself 2 to 3 inches border on a piece and then I'll go start it and I'll start it way too tight to the edge. Won't center the design, and I always laugh and chuckle like, why did I give myself so much space if I'm not going to use it? So I thought that could come in really handy to have like just on a floss ring. So I went off and cut those pieces. I did leave that 3.5 inches there, and I'm going to use that for that. And then I went and cut all these little pieces to just kind of fit around this little wood plaque that I found at the dollar store. All these items were found from the dollar store. And I'm just sanding the edges now, and we are going to make a little ruler box, just glue it together with some wood glue, and then I've got some little apples that I'm going to make out of those other wood blocks there that we saw, and that's why I cut the little dowel, cut a few little stems for those. So I'm just sanding out all the edges, making sure everything's nice and smooth there, and then we're going to go ahead and stain it and assemble. So the stain that I use is a water-soluble stain, water-based. So you can clean it up easy with water, and it is no odor, easy to use, my favorite. Game changer, honestly. This is a Bear brand. It's from Home Depot in Canada, but any water-based stain works well. I'm just doing a test here. So I do go ahead and make 2 of these boxes, one for myself to keep and one for the teacher. But I'm doing a test right there because I got my son to write on that wood plaque with a Sharpie marker. So he wrote his teacher's name, and from him, he like signed it. And I wanted to make sure that with the stain, it wasn't going to affect the Sharpie, like that it wasn't gonna make it bleed or anything like that. So that was my little test with my name on it there. And now I'm just sort of testing this stain out on the ruler. I will say this ruler isn't a raw wood. There is definitely like a natural finish on it. So the stain is not going to, it's not absorbing into the wood like it normally would. In order to get that off and make it the wood raw for it to actually absorb, you'd have to sand it down. And in doing so, the numbers and all the detail would disappear. I tried one little piece of sanding it, and it did, I got it to a point where it would absorb it a little bit better, and you could still see the detail of the ruler, but a little bit more worn and faded. So depending on the look you want, you could do that. I kind of find with this stain that it still almost goes on more like paint. So if it's laying on the surface, it's still going to be okay. It doesn't necessarily need to absorb into the wood. So I just went ahead and still did it on top of what was there and just left it to, so see, you can see here that that coat's dry, and I'm going and doing a second coat just to see if I can get that deeper, richer color that I was looking for. And it just sort of paints on more like than it sat on top nice as like almost like a paint, as opposed to having to have it absorb in. So this is just go through and make sure that everything's covered nice and to the level of darkness. I find with this stain, I've been using it for quite a while. I've got lots throughout the house. I've done some, like redid my pantry and used this. I did some shelves. I got lots of different things throughout the house that I've been using this in and different colors of it. And I do find that the darker you want it, just obviously the more coats you need to do. So it, again, super easy cleanup, no odor. It's wonderful. total game changer. These are the little blocks that I'm going to be making into apples. So I'm going ahead and staining those just to give the raw wood some dark undertones. This is the point where I decided I'm going to go up in coloring. So I'm choosing to go with the dark walnut stain for the second coat. Just the other one wasn't quite rich enough for my liking. So I had this on hand and I've just decided that I'm going to do a coat of this and see how it comes out. And as you can see already, it's definitely much richer color. Yeah. And just again, making sure I'm getting all the sizes or sides and all the little areas of the wood. Let's see how it paints onto the ruler here. You'll notice it sits on, like it's covering that a lot nicer. So definitely was the right choice to bump it up. And then with this stain, there is a poly covering, like a seal that you can do on top. And you can get that in any kind of like the glossy, semi-glossy, matte. So whatever finish you like, they have that. I generally go with a matte or sometimes the semi-gloss as well. But yeah, and that's just a clear coat to kind of help seal everything. And with this being the water soluble, it's definitely, you want to make sure you're sealing it in nice. So I decided to paint this, like stain it before gluing it, because sometimes if you get wood glue onto different surfaces, then the stain or paint won't take as nicely. So this is actually a really nice project to be able to do all of that ahead of time. And then we're just going to adhere it all together with either wood glue or you could use the Aleene's tacky glue as well. Again, just giving those base apples a nice rich undertone, because once I paint my color on, I think I want to like scuff it up and give them a real nice like primitive look to these apples. These were a lot of fun to make and so easy. The dollar store sells these blocks in like a set. They'd be super fun to like make dice out of for a kid's game or something. Yeah, I think it'd be really fun to do some big chunky dice for like Yahtzee or something like that. It would just be a little fun project, but they turned out super cute and I'm going to make a whole bunch more of these little apples. So all right, so now that everything is nice and stained and dry, we are going to go ahead and assemble. I did make two of these boxes while I was doing this. Like I said, one was for my son's teacher, so it had a little personal message on it, and then I decided to make another one with the extra stuff I had. With the second one, there was like my one piece was a little short for the box. So I did end up deciding to just, in order to make a second one for myself, I decided to do a little piece of dowel in there. And that's just I thought, okay, well, I see how it's a little short there. How am I going to fix this? I thought I could just leave it as is. It would have been fine if I just sort of left a little at each end. But I saw the dowel there and I thought, you know what? I can stain a piece of that, put it on, and then maybe use it as like to put a little spool on or something. And since then, it does work really wonderful. I've got a little spool of thread there and it's super handy. So happy accident. All right, so we are going to go ahead and paint. As you can see, this red that I have is very, very vibrant. So it surprisingly was the only red I had on hand. So we are going to paint this on and then I'm going to go back in and prim it up as best I can. I am not the cleanest worker. I just like to get in there and get it done. And as you can see, I try to be neat and tidy, but I get my hands right in there. So always have been that way. Not a glove wearing person either, so that's not going to help. I do keep baby wipes handy, so in between I can definitely clean up as I go. So we're doing a red apple, and then I'm going to do a green apple, and I'm just getting the paint on there, letting it kind of like soak in a bit. And then as you can see here, I'm like, how am I going to get this to look more like what I want it to? So I'm just being real rough and not fancy at all. Just, I want it to have that real weathered and worn and like primitive kind of look. So we've gone ahead and got that on there, and then I've got a couple different green shades, so we're going to see which one we go with. And yeah, these, I don't know, they just turned out so cute. Very fun and easy to make. Anything where you, like, I don't have to like cut and do all sorts of my own little, like, this is just painting and assembling. It's so easy, and the end result just was absolutely perfect. So now that the blocks are dry, we're going to go through and I'm sanding down some of those edges just to give that real worn look, get some of that color off. Like I said, this red was definitely a brighter shade of red than I would have liked. So I definitely am trying to sort of get most of that thickness of the color off a little bit. And then I did the same with the green, and as I was doing it, it again wasn't quite the right shade of green I wanted, and it wasn't getting that full prim kind of feel and look. So I decided at that point, let's go in and take some of that stain and just go over top of the color. And it actually worked out really well to kind of give it that like inky, dirty, kind of weathered, worn look. So I'm super happy with how that worked out. And then we're just going to attach the little dowel pieces that I had cut from earlier and stained on top with some of that wood glue. And they're starting to look like little apples. The next step, I'm going to go through and just cut out little leaves for them and attach those on just out of some felt I had on hand. So we've added that on there now, and these are the cutest. As you can see, the glue still needs to dry, but pretty darn cute, especially for the little teachers set here that I've created, because, you know, reading building blocks to education, all those things, teacher blocks, learning, apple, yes. So I thought it was the perfect little combination. The patch I've decided to make for the back, I just cut out some red felt and white, layered it, make a little apple slice, and put some little seeds on there and created that little. So this is the other box that I made. It is the one that my son wrote a message in the center there. I just have a paper over top of his message just so it's for him and his teacher. And there is the little apple on the back. Is that not the cutest little cover? So really fun. You can always think about layering different layers of felt or material on the back, doing your patches. And I did this little thank you with the year on a clipboard, and then the little apples. So I thought that would be the perfect little combination for his teacher. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and you learned something from it, or were inspired in some way. The last finishing piece was I took this red bag and just sort of trimmed the corners of the bag off to kind of give that apple shape, and then I cut out a leaf with the felt that I had to make the bag itself kind of look like a little apple for the gift. So just another fun, cute idea to finish off this present. But yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed this and you got something out of it. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. And I think I will be definitely making a whole basket of apples in the near future, because they are so fun, and I know my son loved them too, and he, as much as he wanted to give it to his teacher, he was like, "Oh, we don't get to keep it," kind of thing. So, super fun craft. It would be an easy one to do with the kids. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. And until next time, I hope you find some time for stitching or finishes and take care.